당도 다 데린다 가산지야 주규라 최 듬제 덴버주바지베 딘진세 지어레스 다디 저기 녀모 탐지 중에 그 자와데 디레스 그래서 딘진세에 간치려 워스네 유 가르치나 가서 나에도 갈라에 맞여봐 하랑은 주바시는 거레스 디나와나신 디리 다가라를 샤스비 징겐딜 진별로들 딘질라 거레스 다디가 저기 매버서야 거야 될로디 디레스 다디 매버서야 돼 간스 매버서고를 랍나 다 디 진반나신 유지 나와나신 다가레스 진반나 유 나와나신디 다 두게 민도 갈라 마도랑문의 주바디 디 두게 민도 시아도 심주시야레스 다 심주제도 난 가슴질이야 간시네 최 간시네 고시행질을 되는 주바디 마도 현래 마도는 마도바자 랑문의 주바디 기네 민도스 비기 내로치기리에서 디 대동이도 불러라기리에서 다디 디하고에도 되네기 또 불러디다 맞좀 야내야도 꼼지야 누버쳤던 거고 그래서 땅한 쪽에 냠는 지역고야기 디 야겠던 걸로디 디동이도 불러지 매바서 고열로디다 데마르베 텐진리에서 땅한 쪽 디고 가사다 디리 디고 쉬제다 디고 제바제라 삼간에 제바제 고래서 디고 쉬로다.
We've been looking at, as in the seventh verse, how all phenomena arise dependently. And the reason we looked at this is because despite this being the case in reality, every phenomenon that appears or arises as an appearance to consciousness appears to exist independently, without being influenced by causes or being related or connected to anything at all. And not only is there this appearance of true existence, but there is a consciousness that grasps at the phenomenon as existing in the way that it appears. And this is an ignorance grasping at true existence. And this is the root cause of all our suffering. But this isn't a situation where we are powerless. There is a method to eradicate this wrong consciousness, to gain freedom from it, and thereby all the suffering that results from it. And this is to recognize that phenomena do not exist in the way they appear. It is impossible for them to exist in the way they appear as being independent. And therefore, the consciousness that apprehends them as existing truly in the way that they appear is not in accordance with reality, and therefore is a wrong consciousness. So all phenomena, every object of thought, despite appearing as being independent, is actually dependent. Despite appearing as being disconnected and from others and being self-existent, it's actually dependence on others. And our consciousness that comes to realize the phenomena are empty of existing in the way they appear, empty of true existence, is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And this is a topic we need to reflect on repeatedly over a sustained period so as to transform our deep-seated habitual pattern of innately grasping at phenomena as existing in the way that they appear.
디네 하고에도 균 탐제 빵제 균 탐제 빵이 되다 하고에기 하 먹어야기 균 띠묵 딘지 차상요 뭐 띠묵 차상 빵이도 디네 디도초 시시네 가르기 하고거나 차상 캠파도 차고 지사 상이고 봐서 묘모바 탐제 빵비기 빵빵바다 균 탐제 빵바다 연대 탐제 아니 지게 톱세비기 상케세디 토기 여바디 세우하고 거래 디하고에도 대신어도 장주 가상 시바 장주 셈세디 semje tamji do nge sanju ko thoba jin se bige thoba sho sibe samno de janju semrwa chisa da dongba ni do de sanju ko ba thogi yobadi sebu ha go de dene janju semdi nuba da di thobe ge thoba sho sibe samno de shukche ru go res janga de dirwa da 제모를 제나 소수기 제모디 토구요 바데 소수기 디제나 토구요 바데 하고도 셈슈 제야들 숙체를 따야다 안 역샤로 베는 페딜리로지도 소소 당보 레서 삼성 하고도 그 숙시에 처음 줘야 돼 연구로 디나시 당아지 간제레 디니게 산조고 특유 여바도 하고도 되네 자주 쌤디 야 뉴버셔도 야 쌤주셔도 거래 뉴버셔도 당도 거래지
In the verse previous to this, we looked at the generation of bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others. When one generates bodhicitta that is uncontrived, this determination arises spontaneously without needing any effort. When, to the extent then, that one continues, having generated bodhicitta, one continues to meditate on emptiness, one will come to see that the theory of how phenomena exist in reality, as opposed to how they appear to our mind, is correct. And that phenomena do not exist in the way they appear, but they are empty of existing in the way they appear. And to the extent that we come to realize that through repeated reflection, we will know that we can eradicate the root cause of all our suffering. And we will know this because of the strength of our wisdom realizing emptiness that we are cultivating. We will know with certainty that not only can we attain freedom, but our goal of Buddhahood for the sake of others, this can be achieved. So any subtle doubts that one may have had, that I want to become a Buddha for the sake of others, but is it really possible, will be eradicated. Even if there's no manifest doubt, what comes when wisdom impacts on one's bodhicitta is an incredible strength of mind through the arisal of the certain understanding that I can become a Buddha for the sake of others. And this is an incredible mind of confidence and determination. We can perhaps liken it to an athlete who has been training well and they have a goal. But when they know that goal can be achieved, that they can win a particular match or they can be selected for a team, they'll have the enthusiasm to strive even harder to achieve this lofty goal. So too, with the aspirant to become the person who aspires to become a Buddha for the sake of others, when their determination, their bodhicitta, is conjoined with wisdom, then that strength of mind is unsurpassable.
Dine zadang 저기 semje 탐지기 중에 산요고방 토발치 쇼스 장주 semje 두지에다 다 산요고방 토야래야 다 배수에 가르치고 라른다에 가르에서네다 진바다 수제나 쇠바다 준비에 삼대 네 셰럽세다 가서 동유도 비 셰럽 어디서 다 장주 셈 군에 라제 두스님는 제거래 세시 송거래 장주 셈만은 비다 조원님는 디순난 거래 진배님는 수제님는 쇠배님는 준주님는 삼대 셰럽 어두시네.
Having generated bodhicitta within one's continuum, one then engages in going about creating the causes to bring the result of Buddhahood. One now is determined to become a Buddha for the sake of others. So, with that determination, one will accumulate all the required causes to actualize your determination to be of greatest benefit to others. And those causes are, one is the cultivation of wisdom, and that is accompanied by 5 others: generosity, ethics, patience, joyous perseverance, and concentration. These 6, then conjoined with the strength of mind of bodhicitta, the bodhisattva strives to accumulate all the required causes to become a Buddha for the sake of others.
dine zanda dine ma jimbe nyamlen jeyagi kora du shugo da kana shesen dine ma sikde nor long ju jisam ge na yang sem chakshan shin na chingyu gyu le na min ni la mi rebi du gyun du jimba chome zongs.
Of those 6 trainings, the first is that of generosity, and that is presented in our 8th verse. However vast one's wealth and possessions, it just causes shackles of clinging and minds of attachment. Without hoping to attain a ripening result in this or future lives, unceasingly be impartially generous with material wares.
나 될이야 저기 다른 저 삼론 하려야 안에 꽤 가려 용거래 이 판도 입에 삼로데 가래 야 꽤 삼로 가래 디니 뭐 저시지 다 판도 입에 삼로데 이야기 땅고 그래서 나꽤 했는데 마 안에 지 매봐서 그래서 지 송거를 되대야.
This verse then continues with the theme of identifying faults in our way of thinking and eliminating them, and certainly not allowing oneself to be under their influence, as well as beneficial or virtuous ways of thinking, and how to identify them and strengthen them.
롱주에 가려나 셴야 로봇 지금에 제게 되면이 소소하랑 고구에서 배파 세나 착과 심바디 배 소수기다 잘하다 규침 가리네 셴야 땅야야 아니 지기 땅마투근 세나 차되겐지 착배지 디삼로디 다디 아주기 기여데 디메바서 할 삼로디 아주기를 요레스 디메바서 가야래지네 다디 당아주기 디메바서야라 삼로 가르당 고래세네 아니 아주랴 랑기 류 노저 가래이나 셴리아 셴디기 주야다 셴기 동화세야라 파당기 삼베 삼로디 아주디 아주레 디고해레 디장고 고래스 디삼로디 이렇게 당 고래스 그래서 랑기 류 노저 가래이네 셴디기 주야다 셴심전 디기 주야다 셴 동화세 파당기 삼베 삼로디 가세 슈처 조베네 랑기 아니 셴차 The
verse presents the training that we need to engage in here, which is to cultivate a mind of generosity and wish to give through abandoning the opposing mind of miserliness. We observe our wealth and possessions that we have, and independence on our generation of bodhicitta. We recognize that the purpose of these possessions that we have is to create causes to become a Buddha for the sake of others. And in this way, we relate to our possessions as not being something for my own self-interest, but for the benefit of all beings. So here too, we challenge our selfish attitude, our self-cherishing attitude, and place all our resources, talents, skills, wealth and possessions at the disposal of benefiting others. This is how we, in this context, transform our way of thinking and relate more skillfully to our wealth and possessions.
And this samaniga de Nanzuela Yungur, what Nanzuki Gula, Gabrielia, and Sunanzuki, or Daddy, Jingi, to Consulia, Robo chickens and pig, some Loton is and badly Gorua, now some like Yore. And Gabrielia, or that thing that didn't a day to matter, did Robo chicken and pay some Lodi, Senadi Yungur, Dangan, who could similar Yungur, the Niga Yungur, and Niga Yores. In the Dangazuki, Gare, Nubache, Tangoedi, Garelana, Shanlia, Don with somebody. Somebody a new church at Tangores. Then Shanlia and the Dongme Rangus because damn sen, Ching to get Senaji and somebody, my Mavasur, just some nigger you're a jigdy, and the Yarket Tangor jigdy Mavasur, said the Sumurua.
As with other consciousnesses we looked at before, we have the imprints of generosity on our continuum, as well as the opposing mind, that of miserliness. We have both. The mind of miserliness is a mind of self-interest, placing my own needs first and foremost. The mind of generosity is the wish to give to others, the wish to help others and be of benefit to others. So both of these we possess on our continuum. Whichever is stronger is the one we are most habituated to. Understanding this, we then understand that by cultivating the mind of generosity, we eradicate the mind of miserliness. We overcome this thought that will or does sometimes arise. I can help, but not now, not in this way, not this person. So those are expressions of miserliness. And through cultivating generosity, the wish to give, the wish to benefit, we eradicate that way of thinking.
Zanda nor lonju jisam je na ya sem chakshen shen na qingyu gyu zide. Zanda sosoro la nor gyu da bene benjor gaze ji yabu yoba yina ya be yabu yoba na da de denu nga la go du sem be tele sen na na chakwa xiu ju yoba yina ko chakshen deni shen ba ju yoba na ane gaze mangu yue na denu ko de mang chue ha ma de deni gaze yobena ko deni jibene gaze yobena de digale ya ji denu mar ko ya ko hot ji susugi di raya don da la xian ko hot da ya da xian zhen ko su re so jia da deni xi mang bu ji le yong guo de ji san deni ge di yong guo de ji san di gi deni ge xian na xie ba di ge jina ga re yong mo sin qing yu gyu su ko le pa dam du gen ta ba na xin ji dam du go ko le ta tu go ma le ji san di 마 남고 남 친구 규리 제상 코와리아 마타와 코와레 네디비 마홍바당 가서 디 네디 얘기 그래서 디 타발 마서나 디나시리 담디가 나지 타발로서 마서 디 따셔고래제 디 메라서 그래서 지고
Looking at the first two lines, however vast one's wealth and possessions, it just causes shackles of clinging and minds of attachment. Here we look within ourselves and we see how we relate to our wealth and possessions, recognizing that thus far in our life we haven't yet experienced a mind of satisfaction, mind of contentment. There's always this thought of wanting more. And when we achieve what we desire, very quickly that satisfaction passes and we want more. And likewise, when our possessions fade away or break or our wealth decreases, we have an emotional response to that too. We become upset about that as well. And this shows how we are attached to our material possessions, not content with what we have, always wanting more, and being disturbed at the mere thought of having less, let alone if we do have less. This way of thinking is a shackle that keeps us bound to samsara, keeps our mind remaining bound within the suffering realms of samsara. So this is something we need to reflect on and see our mistaken way of relating to our wealth and possessions.
마치 세나치 마샤바치 파 아니 직동고 그래서 되는야 디소 니바데 숨바딜레 렌네민이라 메리비 뒤균도 짐바 초메 종세데 제사 레 다지 간지 짐바 파 땅고 그래서 그래 다 땅연도 간지 땅고 그래서네 렌네민이라 메리 왔어데 다 체들레 니디 파제베네 나레야 수르 디라그레 삼베기 소소레 야게 소소리 추라야다 소소리야 아니 미기 아니 지게 땡아라야 라소바다 소소게 야지 디파지 전에 추šan다지 라야게 된다 되네게 삼다전에 파다교 말했다 다네 디디교 말해지래 야지 레 나야지 개와 치말이야 지게 세딜리네라 다 개와 치말이네 나야지 당아 개와 치말이야 지게 변조하다 튕게 약보 용어체 용나서 배려와 겹제 아니 두시네 라나베네 디안디고 말했어 그래서 딱 가지래 개와 치말이 약보잖아 삼바이나다 세딜이야 소소게 지기 담년다다 가르나 지기 약보라나 삼바이나 파다야디 추지라야게 된다라 삼다시 된 거마도 문에랑 가셔야될 펜비에 삼로서 전에 차고 말아 되네서 파 땅 준비 땅 그러데 땅도 갑라 되네게 소소리야 제부 소소 추라야게 돼 삼다지 파다교 말했어요.
Without hoping to attain a ripening result in this or future lives, unceasingly being partially generous with material wares. Once again, the text is imploring us to be sincere, to be genuine, to not be superficial. generating the wish to be of benefit to others, we should give to them, share what we have with a genuine motivation to benefit them, to ease their suffering and pain, and not think about our own self-interest, what we will get in return. So sometimes one may have the wish to give to others because you know, through developing a relationship with them, you'll receive something of greater value in return. This is to be guarded against. But also more subtly, giving to others, hoping to be praised, hoping to have a good reputation. These need to be guarded against. And then, more subtly, is not thinking of this life, but thinking of next lives or future lives. I want to have an abundance of material wealth in future lives, therefore I'm going to practice generosity now. So this too is an insincere expression of wanting to benefit others, because one's self-interest is apparent. We need to be aware of this, be aware of the danger of attachment to wealth and possessions, whether in this or future lives, and that clinging and minds of attachment are what bind us to samsara. What frees us is a sincere wish to help others.
Dan tamadile ndu yundu jimba chongmen zhe side, ane gedi yine da namgyu mutye che jik tanggu ko jigo res, da jimba de, du sine, diyan chongmen side, da sosole geji kasa nyesa del pa jaya da, yan sosole magasile, da jik sosuki jaya yobene ma jeba jen, di jingyo chokri jigyo ma res, nyering jigyo ma res, ane du sine, ane jik chokri ma jen, nyering ma jeba jen, ane laksan namdagi tohne, ane chasan liya tangyum jen du sine,
In the final line, unceasingly being partially generous with material wares. Here we've been encouraged already to be sincere, and now we're being encouraged to not be sporadic, to help whenever that opportunity arises, to embrace that opportunity, help others with a joyful attitude, a joyful response to having this opportunity. And moreover, we should help others impartially, not those we consider part of our group, those that we feel closer to for now, but whomever is in need, they should be the object of our generosity.
Ngay lu long jue su su ki jikare yomena che sang shen simjen di yu duya la simjen liya pa tangi yin konsu dunga se la pando yoba chil pa tangi yin sambi ke ane ya ane koncho la puye de che puye yin sambi di samlo de nga ya ne ya do samlo de tangu ko da da ji di tangu re de jimbi nyamlen je se de samlo de du shin ya ne ya do se de an sam du se ta ya di ya ne ya do ya ne ngi de lu long jue keso karina shen liya ya controla pigi sambe samna ya ne ya shen digi duya de shen dunga se de la semje sura chi na chasan ya sul gu yi ne phando ye ban tele ba tang yi sambe ge samno du chene dang du chene jimbe nyamne gom gu ye se je du se de ne sam tang yi na sambe du chen samne digi ba du shen ya ne ya du chene samda de le an jimbe gom gu ye se de jimbe nyamne ji gu se de gom gu ye se di se go da.
The meditation on generosity in brief then is generating the intention to give, the wish to benefit, and to utilize all that we have at our disposal to benefit others, recognizing all that we have at our disposal as potential causes for enlightenment. In this way, we offer our body to others, our physical service. We offer all our skills and capacities that we have to others as a form of service. We offer our material possessions to others to ease their suffering. So everything that we have, our skills, our talents, our physical body, our possessions, we commit to utilizing to ease the suffering of all beings. To do so without impartiality, to do so not sporadically, and to do so with sincerity. And to whom one offers, one will do so to the three jewels with a sense of appreciation, to suffering beings with a sense of care for them, and always with a mind of joy at having an opportunity to benefit those in need.
나 진배 ngōsu lālen tāyādi, tā ngā rō tātī 진배 nyamli sō samlo de jāyādi rōwa. ngōsu lālen tāyādi bā tēyādi rōwa tā. 제가 다 데니 진배 nyamli ngōsu lālen 지도 진배데 tā ngā 진배 chāla 진바 tāngōsō ngā rō lū lō chē chāsāng shāla tēshāna, tēna dīg rūpēsō, tātī yā chāsāng tēshābēne dīg tāpā chāgimē pēne ngā rō jōgi mīshigilaya, anē 지게 결혼 라바 제로 셀라네 라바 두 제야데 갈야고로와 안에 강바트라서 강바 두 제야 갈야고로와 디나싱아 주수분 디제스네 갈야고로 다 결혼기 규제라 가요나 갈 제로 셀라네 제야레 때 가고로와 당아주 다딩안서 내가블라 롤 자야라 류노저 가리네 셀레 가르고 있는 이 제인선 베게 삼로나레 디 자야제 당원소라렌 때되갑라 소소게 강연 지용 그 소소게 같이 투구여 바디 제제 마톱나 셈제자와요 말에 강 투구여 바디 나주게 제제제 대 투구면 곧메도게 셈제자와서 가요 말에 어디 차상제와서 가면 디 나주게 야라 옹보디게 차상 잔다 제샤베네 차직 제샤베네 소소 강아 태로가 소소 강아 태베네 소소게 냠린 제알이야 안최 냠린 제알에 바시 지고래 제사 아니 시한래 판도 제발로 소소게 소소라 바시 지고 제사 인자 맞아 가상 긴 슈바나지 시한래 판도 야고로바 야고 제발라 소소수부 야고 고고래 소소래 튕기 롭정아 고고래 소소데 튕겨로 제 야타지 고고래 디메나 시한라로 고제 두말 제사 디네 인자 시한라로 제발라 소소라랑기 베네룰이나 당부 고고래 안에 제게 가서 튕기나 이강 마트바 고고래 대슈 소소시에나 야고 고고래 대사 샹라 판도 고고래마도 지내자 소소게 소소를 강아데 지 모토에 되게 차상 제샤베는 저기 디고마 제사 로를 파자야 당 ngōsu pā lālen tāyīndi, ngōsu lālen tāyīndi, tōs kēpārā chūjī, sōsōla minība, sōsōla kāngā mātēbī tōni, ān shiān lē pāntō kāchī chī tūnda jēyadī rē, mādō, ādā jīmbē ñamla ngī jāyā lā lū lō chī chāsāng tāngīn sīnda tū sām tāngī, tātī mātānda dīgī mārā sām chī jē shabay nē, āni chār jīg jē shabay, chār jīg jē nē, sōsōla jēyā pāntō chī tū mārā wā.
I assume by now it's abundantly clear that Buddhist practice means training the mind, training the mind. What should also be abundantly clear is that this should be done with sincerity, not superficial, not in an external way, but a way that is sincere. So too with the practice of generosity. And the meditation on generosity is, as I've just presented, it's developing the wish to give, to be of benefit, to ease the suffering of others. And in the meditation, we give everything. Our body, our skills, our resources, our possessions, everything. The training, Buddhist training, encompasses training all various mental aspects or qualities, including intelligence or wisdom. And that is also the case with the training in generosity. So this is important to keep in mind because the practice of generosity has two aspects. The primary aspect is our mental development. There is a second aspect, which is the expression of that mental development. Just like other trainings, we develop our mind in a particular way, and this will be expressed in our physical and verbal behavior. So too with generosity. Here, what's important to understand is even if one has developed a sincere wish to give everything to others, to use all that we have from our inner qualities to our outer possessions to benefit others, when we express this inner development, we need to do so using our intelligence, our wisdom. We can't necessarily give to others what they demand from us or request from us. For example, if someone were to request an organ from our body, we need to think, does my health allow this or not? If someone demands our time, do I have this or not? If there's someone has need for material goods that we have, we need to use our intelligence and think, will I be okay without that? Any difficulty that I experience, will it cause me a major problem or not? We need to use our intelligence in this way. The purpose of this training is to eradicate, the purpose of the meditation is to completely eradicate miserliness. And miserliness being an expression of self-interest, placing our needs first and foremost. But the expression of that, we need to not only help others, but use our intelligence to decide when and where we can. Because, as was mentioned earlier, we need in this life to create the causes so that in future lives we don't only attain a precious human rebirth, but that human rebirth has all the required favorable conditions so that we can continue our spiritual development. So too in this life, if we give away too much, that it thereby impedes our spiritual development, especially in relation to our current spiritual level of development. For example, if we give away all our wealth and we're impoverished, that will be an impediment to our training. So that would be a mistake. And that would be a mistake not of the practice of generosity or the training of generosity, but of our use of intelligence. So therefore, we should practice generosity, give of ourselves to others whenever asked in any way possible, but do so using intelligence. So there may be times that we say no, there may be many times we say no, but we do so with intelligence and without taints of miserliness, of self-interest, but rather with intelligence and wisdom.
Di samlo me so ma don so so le benjo ga ze chenpo da ga ze dang tu yu nu bo yo ba ne dang tu ya pa da ya le ro shen gang ga che da dung ga se le pa da ya gi ga le kha bu chi go re di ne yin zam di ma ju ge ba di ma me ba so ya ge dan da la ma so dang gi se be sem la jang go re je da du jang bo yo de ma de da jang ju sem ba nam ji zo nyam len dang bo ji yo de ne jang ju sem kun je che we je le nyam len ji 진배 냠는 조 냠는 지와 삼다 진배 조 냠는 지와 당보 지나 두 진의 삼다도 지도 안 간섬 질이야 고 냠는 야야를 체르도 는 소소 튕게데 야가로 제도 두 진은 방어수 파제데 야고 이마마마 안 간섬 질이야 아니 자주서 파파세데 파차도 내내 가리토네 그 로봇체베나 샬리아 로봇체야다 로봇체 투에 뉴버딜리 거래 제가 뉴버레서 소소게 아니 지게 로봇체 모수 파 가리 제고나 로봇체네 로봇체 투거래 제가 내내자 나 주게 삼문나려야 당보 땅이 셈베 장고비 김전에 교래 제가 디 맞아봐이나 차신되게 디나 되디거래 차신도 여반나 소소야 변조 직쇼지 지여베네 샬리아 안지게 땅투야 갈래하고 저 가진 다 그시 다음에네 소소리야 민침보라야 다 담년다 침보라야기 직라야기 진내냐 돼서 갈가서면 제야 용도 마도 데네 용거래 데네 자다 차신디마 삼로디 매바서 고래 디 매바서 발 동의 선바데 야나야도 공고에도 김센디레세
Training in generosity is of crucial importance to engage in because it's a skillful means to overcome our sense of self-interest, our own self-importance, placing our needs and the fulfillment of our needs first and foremost, placing an overemphasis on the value of things which really have no intrinsic value at all, rather than placing value on the welfare of others. So to bring about this change of attitude requires an approach from many aspects, many different directions, and these have been presented in the various meditations. And by training in generosity, to the extent we train well in generosity, we will notice, become aware of opportunities where we can act in a way that's of benefit to others. Not only that, but we will challenge our attachment to our own wishes and our own needs and fulfilling our own desires first and foremost. And again to emphasize the need to ensure that we practice with intelligence. And as an illustration, a bodhisattva, having generated bodhicitta in a continuum, will train in generosity as presented here, mentally giving everything with sincerity to others. And when not in meditation, whenever there's the opportunity, they will help others. And when they, for example, receive offerings, with joy they will accept them so that they can disperse them to others in need. But what they will not do is give of their body, because for a new bodhisattva, that is beyond them. An Arya bodhisattva, they have the potential to even give their body to others. So here we see ordinary bodhisattvas and Arya bodhisattvas have practiced generosity in differing ways. An Arya bodhisattva will practice in the same way as a bodhisattva, ordinary bodhisattva, but more expansively, because an Arya being can give their body. So for us, the lesson to take from the bodhisattvas there is a need to train in generosity. They train in this way, so should we. And also, to use our intelligence, just like they do, to practice generosity with intelligence, to not go beyond our current capacity, but aspire to always grow our capacity. And then joining that also with using our training in generosity to purify our motivation as much as possible, to be aware as an ordinary being, our practice of generosity is often tainted by the hope for thanks, for praise, for good reputation, for recognition in some way. Try and clear our mind of that, clear our motivation of that, so we help others in the purest way possible.
Dadi samdang yu da jegu bi gyumzai gare labda. Da nga zuge semjen tamje janju semki yu du jamni ji gomje janju sem nyamle ju semjen tamje dunga da jawa da ngi thagi semjen tamje le digi de ngi dugui si gorwa. Jidu da ta semjen tamje nga zu shalya digi duya da dunga se ala gare ge thone kanga chigo gores. Jidu da nga zuge miliya jidu longju yu thone. 다 롱주 메나 나주 밀리아 안지게 강아 디 티고르와 제가 제 사야통야면 롱주 메나 사야통야라고 말 맨주지야라고 말 근데 가리네 지 베주다야 잘라뉴야라고 말 당아서 간주 미디게 두 신은 지게 쇼베네 야랑 저 공다봐도 아는 아주 가리 된다 레글리고 와서는 내 디기 지구고래 디기 주야라 롱주 구고래 진짜 롱주 주에 된다라야 만족이 디 내가 리고로 와 롱주라야던 제가 디네자 밀리아 롱주 메나 디기 연구 말레스 제가 롱주 구고레스 제가 디네자 현유 동아세야라 야벤 미시 캬되베 뒤에베네 코도 캬베 동아세야라 콜로 두로제야다 그 사야동야게 강아체도이나 칼라제야다 디네자 코도 가지기 롱주기 가서 진바당 거야도 로고체오가디 디레스 제자데 현유 동아세야다 디기 주베데 그 롱주에 다제 로고지 된 강아세는 마도셰 얘네 질 콜로로 마제나 강아세 두고 말와 디네자 젠레 진바당 거레스 데 디슨 거레다
Bodhisattva trains in generosity because the practice of generosity is an expression of their love and compassion. They've generated bodhicitta. They're wanting all beings to experience only happiness and be freed from suffering. And thereby to fulfill this aspiration, they will do whatever they can to bring happiness to others and ease their suffering. They will engage then in the reflection, how can I benefit others? What is it that they need? And recognizing what they need, will do whatever they can in accordance with their capacity to fulfill the needs of others. So the Bodhisattva will recognize that beings require their basic material needs fulfilled in order to be happy. And therefore, they'll give clothing to the cold, they'll give food to the hungry, and in any way that they can materially help others, they will do so. And they'll understand that when they have the opportunity to help others, and they have the capacity, this is something to be joyous about, and an opportunity to embrace. And thereby, they'll help others whenever they can.
아주이네 세달이네 당한 주기지 몽베네 다 셴리아 셴도 판도 주고자 다 몽베이네야 당한 주기 셴리 판도 주벌이야 소소리야 강한 매바시고 그래서 제산 사야 동야 당 소소 고야 다 되니기 튕겨서네 강한 매바시고 그러 되네자 다된 강한 주기 셴리아 진바땅하지 진바똥위 선배 삼로땅 되네 소소이 단에 삼땅이 돈에 소소리야 강 톱두기 셴리아 로버체 투바이네 진바땅와 있나 니기 제부디 나가서리 마음바나야 근데 제가 치마이네 롱주 중요해 되고래서 롱주 중고래 제자데 롱주 아주기 아주 밀이야 롱주면나 강아티고래 그래서 내 롱주면나 롱주기 매배 강아티지제 다디네 롱주디 매와자 롱주기 라야기 또는 탑론 베즈다 내가 다 말하지리 아주 취행님네 제가 고갑대 용줘야다 안도신 다 소소 롱주면나 소소 롱주면나 전에 판바야 주투고 말해 디네 매와자 소소리에 롱주야고 그래서 제가 디 고엔자 마음바나 소소리에 롱주야 양부 주의기 귀디 진바들이 봐 진바 땅에 되래 제가 진바 땅와를 때네 아주 롱주 제부 롱주 연구를 제가 디네에서 아주리야 마음바나 롱주야고 귀디 다데는 아주 진바 땅 고래 진바 땅제 나사 고래 진바 땅 고래서 제가 디 제부 마음바나 롱주 연구를 해서 제가 디네에서 당 진바 땅 고래서 김선직대 디차고래
Generosity being an expression of the Bodhisattva's love and compassion. They will help others as much as they can, whenever that opportunity comes their way. And they'll do so with the understanding that by easing the material difficulties of others, happiness is brought to others, and their coarser forms of suffering are eased. And they'll want to do so as to make connection with beings, to help them in ever greater ways. And also, the Bodhisattva knows that they are creating causes that will ensure that in their future lives, that they have an abundance of favorable circumstances which will aid their own continuing spiritual development life after life, as well as ensuring that they have the capacity to be of material help to all others. So with this focus on being of ever greater benefit to others, the Bodhisattva readily, with ease, gives to others.
조진다 랑 두시 진비냠네 소소의 진비냠네 제다 소소기 다 지금 마 지금 샹달이네 진비냠네 제가 그 냠는 제약이 아니 걸 꾸마 제제 샹달 진비냠네 제주고 그래서 그래서 진바 땅지 진비냠 동외 선바 장주 안 진바 되네게 진비 호소 제제 지제외 제나 저 심진 담제 대화대 대국도 세비 대화대 덴바 지그리 제국도 섬거와 지사 심진 담제 대화대 덴바 제발 대화의 유디 콜라 사주고 그러와 사주고 그래 대화의 유 지사 대화의 유디 갈사 그래서는 당 아주 다들 시에들이 가사나je 룡아 이수 예주dimbe 추름송야 디네데디 진바따야 진비 냠는 진바 동에서 삼바따야 아니 진봉고서 파라렌 따야디게 디는 아주 제고바는 신심진 덤질래 심질래야 아니 강도 지도기 코들래 아데 경아 추름송야다 디네데디 송내 야고 송고 그래서지 디네 송주베네 마오바나 아니 걸래 아니 밀리토야다 디기야 규식샤고 안 디나심 다 결혼에 동에서 봐서 땅고래 되니 동에서 봐네 한 시간에 강도지 로봇 진바 동고래에서 비 되니게 동주베네 다 마오바나 코로나야 롱주야기 Gyusa. Just a Dijus among Banacola Digu and Gyusa. Just a chance some jet Digi the Denver Chicken City, could Dewa Yudicola Saju. Just not that Saju, Sosu in Yamlan Gaya Majeva Shanlia and Jay Kalekapore. Just a dinner Sosu in Yamlan Shanlia, the Lobdun Jeja, part Dusin, Yamlan Jeju.
Moreover, the Bodhisattva understands that in particular, when they materially help others who are in great material need, they form a very powerful connection with that person because that person responds so well to them, is so appreciative of receiving the help they so desperately needed. And this connection that's being formed and the receptiveness of this person, that is of great value to a bodhisattva. That is of great value to the bodhisattva in that it enables them to help beings in a truly meaningful way. Merely easing the material suffering of others is important, but it's a very temporary benefit. What is of far greater value is through this connection that the bodhisattva is creating with this being, and now their receptiveness, because they appreciate the bodhisattva can guide them in how to accumulate the causes for their own happiness. They are in such need now because they haven't created the causes for their own happiness. What they need in the short term is perhaps food on the table, but what they really need is the knowledge of what the causes are for happiness. And in particular then, the bodhisattva will guide this being in ethics. What should be abandoned and what should be engaged in, so that this person can understand how to create the causes, not just for material comfort, but for lasting happiness.
수림송에들이 해제 류아이 수교도 샬은 예주도 수림송이나 날 하다 미고반도 귀디 디차고 해제래 날 하다 밀게베네 안에 베미 벤조다 튕긴 gün에만 강아 시우치 여베나 안 디안에 강아르와 강아세 밀게베네 안에 강아를 강호되어 봐 제사 디네자 강아디 디마야게 된다라 마음바나 튕긴 약고야디 네 가서 다딩아도 진변념을 제고래서 지난 진변념을 줘다 수rim하고 손나 아니 미게 다 진변념을 집에 제보들라 밀게 여도 갑라 한 튕겨되게 야타 좀 그래서 제가 튕겨 주고 그래서 요한들이 대 진받님을 줘버렸어 되네 아직 밀게 왜나 지 원보 마상 와라서다 밀수토나 배 마가버기 지게 나 지여나 지고 말해 되네자 지게 원보 상와다 수토나 지 나중에 지게 지지대 된바지 용고나 근데 지금 용고에서随便님을 줘버렸어 다디 진비 수행념을 미유개월 하다 미유개월엔 발라 수행념을 제 되네 하다 미 계획이 된 될이야 농주야고 용하디 안에 지금 진변념을 제 되네 된될이야 원보 상와다 소속이 지지대 된 모양이 随便님을 줘버렸어 제가 디숨디기 아주게 밀유토비하게 밀유된델이야 안에 농주야야 안디 된델이야 원보 상와다 안에 소속이 지지대 된 모양이 진변념을 류아이 숨고네 샬렌데 지금에 심비 수림송해야 돼 직제 다 되네 나 샬라 류노제 샬라 땅이 심비 삼나 따지 디토네다 삼나 디네 따네 소속이 강투 지도게 랑라 미니베 토네 샬리아 판도 강투도 진바다야 직제 니제 다 되네 쇠버 고미야들이 쇠버 고미야들 디숨디 당하는 주게 디 밀리토비아 안에 디 밀리티에 롱제야고 요야 다 밀리데 원보 상와다 안에 지지대 된 모양이 교수님이 디레지 오래
Independence on this connection, this relationship that the Bodhisattva now has created with this being. The Bodhisattva will be able to give them advice. And this person will be receptive to it in a way that they otherwise would not. We all know what it's like to receive unsolicited advice. But here, it will be greatly different because that person is receptive to them. Moreover, they see the Bodhisattva as someone inspiring, someone whom is worthy of emulating. What the Bodhisattva would primarily show this person is it will encourage them to accumulate the causes that will lead to a good rebirth. So in the third verse, there was reference to the precious human rebirth. This is something that all beings require. So as not to be born in the lower realms, but rather to have a good rebirth. And the primary cause, as was mentioned then, is ethics. So the Bodhisattva would teach this person the meaning of ethics and how in their life they can live ethically. Secondly, the Bodhisattva would teach them about generosity, because ethics is the cause that leads to a good rebirth as a human. But to ensure that one's other needs, such as our material needs, are fulfilled, we need to practice generosity. So this is the second key cause required to have a good rebirth. The ethical restraint leads to one attaining rebirth as a human, but so as not to be in destitution or living in very difficult material conditions. Ethics need to be conjoined with accumulation or the practice of generosity. And the third key training the Bodhisattva would guide the person in is that of patience. Patience being a mind that is undisturbed in the face of adversity. Because for those who experience the ripening results of patience in their life, their sense powers, their mental and physical sense powers are not flawed. And moreover, they have harmonious relationships with others. And they live in harmony with others, get on with others, easily form friendships, and do not have conflict. So these three causes, ethics, generosity, and patience, all need to be accumulated so that we attain good rebirths with all the favorable circumstances to lead, at the very least, a comfortable life. And ideally, to be able to engage in spiritual training.
Somebody that Zunjusura, and the Shanley, Pembertuya, Jamze Samdaya, and the Kiwi Chawatuya, Bekalan, and Guy George Sambitilla, Zunjusura. Chisan Deniki Zunju Chiuvena, and the Tedilla, Deniki Zunju Yamna Chapena, Di Shugin, the Yawachima in the hands, Kawakevin, the Mir, the she, Tsurimson, Miliki. Dene chiki chimbe nyamleje sebe nyamleje de milu ya bo top tungye ya ta je ane dele ya ane chi wong bo sama cha sa yu di ko bla dene digi zunje nyamle ya bo che na digi gewe chawa gewe chala denu ga ya da ane ga xin zhe xin yo ya da ane ji ge xian le pen pe cha da dene ge ane ji den dele na di ya wo yong ko de je za dene za du chen ne ma zu di somebody ya gong ge de zhu ko de che de za da zunje song bu de sa ji ma zu ge yue cha wa cha la ga xin zhe xin mo ne ga che de ya ga ze ji ge ji ki nyam len ji tu wei ne di gi jin ji mong ba ne ne gao jie wei ne de le ya ane ge yue cha zhu bi le ya xian le pen bo du ya le ya ane sim shu da ga lang la chung ko de che de.
Mentioned three causes, there's a fourth. The first was ethics, the second was generosity, the third patience. The fourth is joyous perseverance. So this is where one takes joy or delight in persevering or engaging unceasingly in virtue. This too is an important component to ensure that we attain good rebirths in the future, and therefore the Bodhisattva will guide sentient beings in how to take delight in virtue. Because for us, for example, to help others, this is something we have the imprints to do and we can do quite easily. But to do so in a sustained manner, with a lightness of mind, without a sigh and a sense of effort, that is more difficult. But if we are doing so with an untiring attitude, taking joy in what we are doing, not only can we be of so much more benefit to others, but certainly the sincerity with which we aid others is greatly enhanced. And in terms of the ripening result that comes from joyous perseverance, it is that in future lives, we will continue to delight in virtue. We will have a disposition, a personality that is naturally inclined to virtue, that takes joy in virtue, and therefore has a dislike for non-virtue. So that will arise naturally in future lives, and that will thereby aid our continuing spiritual development. So the Bodhisattva then, who also is training in these practices, will take great joy themselves in practicing generosity towards others, being ethical and patient, and take delight in easing the suffering of others, both now in the short term and in the longer term. So in this way, the Bodhisattva practices all of these together, and that is the example for all of us to follow.
Tanga kewa chima lada miya kovan luchi matam de jigmido da dunro kena kanga mangudo desada kewa chima lada mishi lada yana lai kewa shilengo yana mi kewa shilengo do diinza da hei kewa lenda mi kewa lenda churum sunga de lesido diinza nge kewa chima milu tobyada yana lai kewa lenda dondalya ngeti lunga yusumi kone ande chichen le be chawa chigme sembege 다 하다 미고방 토비하게 치도 당에 류가 수시하는 데 지금에 수좀 숨긴 선배가 송바네 지거래 다양 안디나시다 다 밀리 토바네야 튕기다 강아 지존 다다 강아 쇼도 튕기 마다 강아도 지선 다 땡들이야 튕기 약부 줘야 될이야 안지기 용하게 된다려야 다디 규디 진배냠에서 지선 디네 상에 샬이야 지게 팬배자와 동외 선바 장야당 소소기 샬이야 판도 마강 진바강 땅투도 땅인 선배 삼다지 다위네 지거래 디야 지거래 안디나시 다 개와치마 안직 밀리 토브네 왕보 마상와다 미 마상와다 되는 저 강아시와서 저다다 왕보 상와다 아니 지게 소소기 시지대 된바 중앙와 지우도 다디 인상이 시스터바 공기인 세배 세배냠을 지긴 세배게 삼다 세배냠을 지나 디고래 다야 개와 치마리나 다 체디나징이 개위 자와지 아니 김치 개조지야 약부 중선 개와 치마나 되네게 약부 영향이 된다려 당연히 개위 자와를 전주지 정비 세배게 전주 선배네 디한티고래 다디 디고래 제대
For us as beginner practitioners, it is sufficient to have the following motivations in terms of ethics, to generated a strong determination to achieve a good rebirth in our future lives, at least as good as the one we have. We must not fall into the lower realms, such as being born as an animal, but must achieve a good rebirth. And the primary cause to be born as a human being is to practice ethical restraint, restraining our mind and thereby our body and speech. Secondly, in terms of generosity, recognizing that in our future life, if we are born as a human, but we are suffering due to material impoverishment, our mind will be dominated by trying to feed ourselves, trying to stay alive, to sustain ourselves. So therefore, we must practice generosity to ensure that we have sufficient favorable circumstances in our future lives. And thirdly, patience, the motivation of having harmonious relationships with others and our faculties being unimpeded, one that is a sufficient motivation to practice patience. And then fourthly, joyous perseverance. Here one strives to take joy in our spiritual endeavors, knowing that those imprints of delighting in virtue we will experience in a natural inclination to delighting in virtue in our future lives. And this will make us open and receptive to spiritual development. In fact, we'll seek out opportunities to spiritually develop and will readily engage in them. So for us as beginners, a motivation such as this is sufficient.
Digo residue, the teaching unto the Lexicus Sumba de la Lenimilla Mirebi, and Dukin the Chimba Chore Chometu, says the Sungrua, Chesan Len Neminilas, so solely derived and Dala Samna Tangio Mares. Chidana, Gewachima Milu Yabotoya Getunda, Gewa Chimalia, and Sosulia, and Milutoy, Dendel, Lonja, some died, Sosulia Hag, some tongue to us. Says that Dina did some Tangyo Marsig to a Dini, Gawachag to us, and pick it up Dobalingua.
The advice I've just given you, you'll notice, seems quite contrary to the third line that seems to have contradicted the text here. Because hoping for a good rebirth with favorable circumstances clearly seems to contradict the third line, without hoping to attain a ripening result in this or future lives.
That did it. Jesa de Sheba de Kiwachima Yahoyag, Dundala, Jimbato, Susan, and Jigority, Ina, Kiwachima, did I have some Guinea Matamache, Sosolia, two I have some Guinea Matamache, Pa Jimbato, Children, Subenium, Chedi, Dini, Yaga, Gris, and Nibedi Yaga, or Sosolia, Rayag, Rawada, some Majavache, also Jimbata, Children Soyata, Chevade, Di, Janjusim Benyam Cheda, Janjusim Benyam Cheda, Jesa di Yagares. Jesa Sosugi Gewachima Lada Migo one Tobiaki Dunda, some Matamaji, Tangita, Shanley, Nubiki, Javasa, Zawaki, Shala, Nene, the Jigmare, Jesa Luna, Sushala, Nebashi, Sawa Jigme, Asabi, Sudum Suba Ina, Gewachima Lada Mi, Makoma Dugres, Tobi, Rewa Majabne, Kohati, Suhilen Tugres, in Jimmy de Lingres, Mazu Malimba Chagmares. And then Sosurana get that Jimbata. Gewachimagi, some Matamache, that Shangi Ganga said, that Dunga said, in Shanley Panto to Yachi, Shan, some Bokonichu, and Sosolia, Chikaya, some mother Rayagi, Sedi, that Gewachimagi ton, some Mataji, Shan, Panto Rang, some Taji Dushin, Pa Jimbatan by Ina, she's a Dijabudi, Sosol Yunguries, some Madan Ragiries. The big Awa Jagos and another Dijagor, Bene, Azuki, Apple Chikapu Sawa, some Chitavio to Gabla. Now the mixer the Carol Migus and Apple de Migo, Mado, Evo Gishing Loma down and Dongo de Migo, Mara, Taving on the Jevo Dondala, Tabgore. She's not Tavio to Ditavio to Jevo Dombo, Yaga, the method Rashing for Shayongores, the method Shayag Dondal Taguma, Evo Rayag, Sayag Dondalpa, Chitavena, Evo Dombuki, then method Shah, two Shayongores, which is the Loma, the method called Delia di Rayag, Joe Majabene, Dileongores, Dinashi, Sosugi, Sham, Shan, Digitueta, Shan, you do not say, Sosugi, Kevin, some Matawaje, Shan, Janya, some Taji, Jimbata, Surum Sung, Server Com de Cheven, Digi, Devudi, Mount, but a Sosolia, Raya Imbades, some Matana, Di Matawachin and Azula Rayagi, between Yakayores, or that, the Yasho Dires, or Java Majavachi shall die. Yashores, what I think Jida Yaduni, and the Yard Gore, what is the D to Chegores, more of that.
Whilst the advice I've just given is suitable for us as beginners, we are capable of a far greater motivation. If we engage in the meditations presented here, that far greater meditation will arise within us. We all sit here as aspirants to the Bodhisattva path, wanting to generate the paths of Bodhisattvas within us. So therefore, within the accordance of our current capacity, we should try to emulate the Bodhisattvas. So we all have the imprints of love and compassion. We do have love and compassion regularly arising within us. To use that motivation that those imprints we already have and conjoin them with the cultivation of ethical restraint, generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance. Thinking, for example, I will restrain my mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions because I don't want others to suffer. I don't want to add to their burden of suffering. This is ethics. We're restraining our mind and thereby our physical behavior and our speech, but our motivation is primarily for others. Likewise with the practice of generosity. Others are in need. I have an abundance. I will share it with others and thereby ease their suffering. Here we're practicing generosity with love and compassion at the forefront of our motivation. And so too with patience and joyous perseverance. So we're engaging in the same practice, but we're doing so now motivated by the love and compassion we already have on our continuum. And thereby, the ripening result is far, far greater. That being said, though, it doesn't mean that if our motivation is, in terms of our motivation, we are not focused on our own self-benefit, but on that of others, it doesn't mean that our own benefit won't be attained. For example, if someone really enjoys apples and would like to have apples growing in their garden or eating apples at home, they will plant an apple tree and it will grow. Their motivation is to have apples, but they won't, as a result from that motivation and the planting of a seed, only attain the result of apples. They will also get the branches of the apple tree and the leaves of the apple tree. So, in the same way, with a motivation focused on others, on the welfare, the benefit of others, we will achieve our own interest as well. So here what we're trying to do is, to the best of our limited capacity, remove the self-interest from our motivation, to remove the focus on our own welfare, and have, with whatever degree of sincerity for now we can generate, the needs of others. And in this way, we practice ethics, generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance.
Kadamba Lama Tiki Jike Sunyalea, Sungorasene Jike Jawangama Kanche, Daddy Lula Duesura, the Jawangama Chimbatan Duye, Surum Sundu, Misude, Dadan to Lula, then Haguri Esura. Karasene, Dadan to Miri. Milu top the yore, Chizan Sosugaria, Twinkin the Yata Jure, Chizan Dinenza, Jawanga Magi, Surun Sunwe Dari, Jawanga Mai, Surusumare, Digi table that has Milu to us, Chazan Miludi, not Jawanga Surusumare Shas. Chazadan has to Twinkin the Yata Jure, Jawanga Chimbinium and Jebarishas. Chazan Jawanga Makaje, Daddy Lula, Daddy Lula, Dubena, Jawanga Magaji Haku to Buddhist. That Chima Gandro, that is similar to Sore. 지난 개와 치마 가와 두고에 매대 다당아서 셈나 가르치기도스 개조 또하다 수림송야다 인진바섬 다야다 쇠바든 집에는 개와 치마에 다가 밀루 주고 그래서 다체델야 즉 류가 있으면 예제 마돈바제 샬랴 체외 삼바다 네베 삼바데 네 제야당 아니 즉 소수게 세나 제야당 쇠보마 공바다 디네 집에는 개와 치마 가서 개요 제자디 개와 치마 가와 두고에 매대 다당아서 셈나된 하고 제가 셈을 따고래 제가 셈을 따제 아니 셈을 개와 치마 야가 줘야기 삼로디 베시치고 그래서 제가 다당아서 저기 류디 제가 개와 아마래 밀리 수름송 안 쇠바고 진비냠래 제발에 때네 디 정도와 디 제도와 제가 아데 나서 밀리 더기 수름래 런주주야 돼 가서 진바다에 돼 쇠바고미야 되게 디레시도 지나다 다데디 류디티도 개왕아마 귀디 조바 기시르와다 귀디메나 디야야 메르와 지나 디리에서 지나 아마 간체 다디 류라데 치마강로 다데 셈라데 세야지 두송거래.
There's an expression from the Kadampa Lamas, if asked, or if wondering, what were my previous lives like? They'd say, you can see the answer for that. Firstly, in previous lives you practiced ethics well because you have achieved a precious human rebirth. And look at your material conditions. And from that, you can tell how well you practiced generosity in the past. Look at your relationships with others and see how well you practiced patience in the past. Look at the delight you take in virtue, how inclined you are to virtue. And from that you can tell in your past lives how well you practice generosity, joyous perseverance or not. So if you want to know about your past lives, look at your current life. And if you are curious about your future lives, look at your mind right now. Look at whether your mind is ethical or not. From that you can see what future realm you'll be born in. Look at your mind and how generous you are, and you'll know how your material comfort, your material circumstance will be in future lives. Look at how patient you are, and you'll know what kind of relationships you have with others, how your sense powers, mental faculty, whether they'll be impeded or not. And look at your own mind in terms of taking delight in virtue, And from that you'll know in your future lives if you'll be inclined to virtue or not. So if you want to know about how you lived in your past lives, look at what you have now. If you want to know how your future lives will go, look at your mind. The presentation on generosity, or the practice of generosity, has three divisions, because in many ways one can be generous. So the first is that of material generosity, the second is that of giving the Dharma, and the third is that of giving fearlessness or protection. Material generosity, this is very straightforward. It's making offerings to suffering beings, easing their burden, and it includes making offerings to the three jewels.
Chegi jimba sayadi sosugi nyamlen chepi sosugi kewa bene jamba samdaya da anjige ninche komya anjige daji ngaranjogi jimbi samdaya da answeba komya de sosurana kewa chi chechorwa dinashi shanla yang kewa chechuban odu jamje komjuya da anjige ninche komjuya anjimbige samda juya sweba komjuya churum sungja shanla ya du chen chechubaina di ane chegi jimba yesi wolda.
The second, that of giving the Dharma, this is our own spiritual training, or rather, this is the virtue that results from our own spiritual training. So, for example, through meditating on generosity, we create vast stores of merit. Through acting under that influence and being generous, we create vast stores of merit. That is a generosity of the Dharma. So too, with cultivating the minds of love, compassion, ethical restraint, and so forth, all of these lead to the accumulation of virtue. And that is the generosity of Dharma.
so ane michik pichimba so le gyoba ko shiele so le gyobi ni chik tablam kar cheben chicheba na ko michik pichimba ko garsen ko semjendi ko so le ba shiru ko de jisa 아주 소어들 교바자 콜레야 가서는 세디 황아주 제반은 지바로 거 가서는 로바 제제 고 소래 타자 고 돼야지 망하라고 제가 미직비지바 지야디 매바 내가 마지바디 고 제반아지 미직비지바 소래 교배야 되겠어요.
The first type of generosity was that of giving material goods, wealth and possessions. The second was that of generosity of the Dharma, which refers to the virtue we create through our spiritual training. And the third is the generosity of fearlessness. So this is where we help those who are in grave danger of dying, of being killed. So those who are in fear of their impending death. So one can think of an illustration I gave earlier of an insect trapped in a small pond. That insect will be splashing around, desperate not to die. Helping that being is the giving of generosity, of fearlessness, helping that being ease its burden of tremendous fear and live out its natural lifespan. Or helping someone who's critically injured or critically ill, helping them to saving their life. So in these ways, one helps beings in a time of great fear and helps them to live out their lifespan.
지난 되네 자당한 저기 진비 냠내 제도 진에 동에 semba 장지다 받침받다라 나야 저기 어떤가 이때 변조 샤야망 짐바다야 되데 냠는데 용사마라 삼사 제가 연구로 봐. 진짜 이제서 짐발야 땅에 제들야 최충기 개발요 말 충충지 다베네 베네 저기 무슨 충충지라 칼라데 시테베네 안데 안야지 디와 미네베지리야 맹기신데 고망가로 시테베네 디 충충레데 이나 공원들이야 가 삼려야 다 전기 동안 세야다 신이 디기디 좀 야고래 삼제 딩해실 땅이 삼비기 되는 시테베나 다 고망가로 시고 때베네 충충레데 이나 디기 개와도 없지 못하고 그래. 맞아. 그 제들이야 망용이 개발요 말. 다 제들 앞에는 지글로고 지게서는 뭐 망고지로고잖아. 소소게 땀냐다 여야다 소소야 땡아라야 그던다 뭐 야고 망고시 때베네 팬 충충마도요 말에. 제디 파트야 돼 망고 때발에. 팬 라삼 남다게 토네 현리에 팬배 삼라지 야고래 삼제 저 현리에 땅기 이제 제자 땅 아디 요 고급라도 되긴 chen 땅기야 콜 팬나 야고래 삼제 두시에 충충지 고망가 주스마 제베네 니 제디 충충레데 이네 팬디 수남치 못 사고 제자 조안 주기 다 수남 사이디 아주 남바 상집에 조 세미 토네 군롱기 토네 군롱 제체충 토네 다디 소남 사야디 치숑루고 제자다 나 저기 소남 사야디 삼로 같이 개체는 삼로들 누베체 차고래 삼로 누베체는 니기 제보 마음보는 누베체 용거래 삼로들 누베충 아마도 맨날 디 제보 충 아마도 용거마다 제디래다 건지 아주 그 짐바다에게 제일이야 아니 개발에 치숑이 개발요 말 소소 꾸물이야 아니 지 조 꾸물을 판도 치숑도는 소남 체사고 양치기 가브리엘야 제기 군노아 야고여네 난 제기 토네네 제디 버지 망보지 제제고 면주에 야고치야다 되네게 야고를 주어야다 로정 야고 용어야다 되네게 세베네 양 디야 판도 전부 이가 연구로다 제기 토네래 안지 난 군노 토네 이기 토네 판도 전부 제거래 개와 덮치 못 사고 그러지래.
The practice of generosity, there's a number of key points to be clear on, otherwise confusion or misunderstanding can follow. The one I mentioned much earlier, talking about the need to use our intelligence and to act in accordance with our capacity. And the second is not to be thinking, not to be impeded by the thought of, I don't have much material wealth to share. I don't have much in the way of an abundance. I'm struggling to get by, or I'm just getting by. Or I'm not accumulating much virtue in terms of the Dharma, or have many opportunity to help others with fearlessness. Here we need to bear in mind one of the key points made throughout this text, is that the meaning of Buddhist practice is to transform our mind. The focus is not on external activity, but it's on the mental motivation behind any activity. What makes a generous action a cause that will lead to a large ripening result or not is less so about the actual act of generosity, for example, what it is or how much is given, but much, much more about the motivation. So the material, what is actually given, this does matter, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but what particularly makes a difference is the motivation, the intention. The more powerful and the less tainted by self-interest the motivation is, the greater the merit that is accumulated. So therefore someone who gives with good motivation a little bit of food, even their own scrap food, to animals, can create vast stores of merit because of the quality of their motivation and lack of self-interest. Or giving just a few dollars to charity. This can be, in terms of the result that follows, the karmic result that follows, a very large act of generosity in dependence on the motivation. Similarly, someone who very ostentatiously gives a lot of money and does so with a motivation of self-interest, perhaps wanting reputation, perhaps wanting to be praised and recognized for being a generous person, whilst what they're doing is needed and is good, the virtue that they are creating is impeded by the quality of their motivation. So the emphasis in terms of generosity is less so on what is done and more so on the motivation behind it. Then further to say, what is given, that does still matter, that does still make a difference. For example, what one gives to and the way that help is thereby attained, this is important. If help is given to someone who does need it rather than someone who doesn't, this will make a difference. If what is given or the amount that is given is relatively a lot, but for that particular person giving is very little, that has an impact. So what is given to? This is the substance. This does matter, but primarily the motivation. So therefore, no matter what one's material circumstances, one can practice generosity.
지기 소소교 부당 소소교 분야다 소소교 다지 파말야 지 내내기 하는 아주 소소 조건이 벌야 이제 지가블야 지게 년바로 제야다 자로다 칼라 제야디 네네 삼말야 아니디 샹야 편도치도 지기 당기 샹라 콘조 샹심자 탐지기 된다 편도셔야 진바땅 벌 땅고 진짜 니 냠는 지기야 선배 삼다 제베나 예수 진비 냠는 제거래 안디 멤베게다 아주기 디와 제 Dalai Lama Rochen, Pusin Letea, Jaletea, Munu Letea, the Sagunon Tolia, Shan Pemba, the Shan Simjan, Pembe, Sembig, Dushing it, the Dangus and Besam Javana, and the air, but Jiminium like Yachimosagore. Now, Jiggy Paz do what to do, and Jig Medoduma, I sing on the Injura, Cherry, Tony the Caplia, as the Medoduma, the Medobe, into the Daddy on ya. Di medo di yang control pugu samjia and sang il pugu and the medo dia jik do shin ye control sang il pugu some meba je do shin jevena the yang has a jimba chago pugu dang has jan ma de de jimba se control le pugu de cheba siguro that new the na ji cheba pugu chago dina sing a je kala se du kablia 당한주 수보나래 무슨 망고죠 와당한주 칼라면 무슨 면에 수부 부대게 시르나한주 강아 티거로 와당 제상한주 수부 무슨 시오 동다 망고요 세거래 제상 칼라 세디급래 나주 세디는 나주 남미 세디가서 조가야에 돈달 살 삼다 세거로 와 다디네기 진면냠는 지디급래 조가야 삼마다 하지 미 류이들에 무슨 봄자 망고요 다 제술이야 지 칼라디 제징에 콘슬리 제기야 진바당기스 제상 디네 제시나 칼라디 사와 때네 콘주 디 부신디게 아니 콘주 류이데보다 셈기고 용어 쇼 삼제 칼라 직사베나 진바샤고르데 제상 진바나 양쪽에 지게 망고슈고 당아주게 깔레게 시라 잠모하지 안지기 디니기 메도도다 신다 데디와 직디 푸베네 메도도나 된 소소 메도도나 마인데 메도도는 디부야 근데 데디 연자 푸야 데디 지디스에 는 최고 푸야 자고래 엔두시네 아주게 진미냠는 제야다 지바도 메봐야 돼 당아주 칼라 하마로 다데네 아주 삼다다 하마데 먹어야지 유샤고 선비기 유고로 삼지오로 다 데네게 스카블이야 칼라마데 니마지 디부치 부망고시 사도 그래 시상 콘도 부디게 파사네 콘도 판도인 거 코즈 디네 약보레 삼제 파제베나 디제 안에 잘레 파티디가라 제디게다 칼라사고 콘도 무슨 사로 시상 에디 칼라 제베는 콘도 조고자지 무슨 마사지 부망보지 소교비야 차그래 코로나리 안에 제스 칼라사 조고자 차그 판도르 지장이 진비 땅구에 스비게 땅에 디네스 삼전 탐지게 don달이야 진비 냠을 지구에서 진비 땅구에 선배지 두스 제베는 디스 춘춘춘주레디 이내랑 저게 개와 같이 못 사두고 왔다 다 진비 냠을 두스 제 용거래
Whilst the wealthy certainly have the possibility to be of great material benefits to others, relatively speaking, those who are poor, those who are impoverished, can give proportionately far more. Moreover, what primarily, as mentioned, marks out an act of generosity is the motivating mind. And one's wealth or impoverishment is no reflection on the quality of one's mind. Then in addition, because that was mentioned earlier, then in addition, everyone has an abundance of opportunities every day to practice generosity. Generosity, then, we should understand through its definition, the wish to give, the wish to benefit. So we have the opportunity to generate the wish to give, the wish to benefit at all times. And we regularly have the opportunity to express that physically or verbally. For example, if you live with others, if you live with your family, for example, you will care for your family. You'll care for them through your physical activities, your way of speaking, and so forth. Here, you generate a wish to give to them a harmonious and peaceful home, to give them a delicious and clean environment, a delicious meal in a clean environment. So in this way, one's regular activities within the family can be acts of giving. Because what marks them out from just regularly, for example, cleaning the house, or it being an act of giving, is not the physical endeavor, but the motivation. So too, with a meal of giving to the family, there's often, though, a little bit left over. One can either throw that away, or one can give that to others in need, such as animals outside. Or again, being aware that for what is for us waste, other beings will look at with delight and see as a source of food. So whether this is leftover food on a plate, which others will look at as food, or whether it's the beings in our compost who eat the peels and so forth, or whether it's excrement in sewage, there are beings who look at these waste products as food. So give it to them. And in this way, one practices generosity. When one eats one's meal, certainly we eat to satiate our hunger, to sustain our body, but within our body are countless bacterial beings, and these tiny beings are satiated, they are nourished by our food too. So eat not just for our own health, but also for to fulfill the needs of the beings living within our body. So in these ways, it's very easy to practice generosity. Because again, generosity is the wish to give. And that is a wish we can generate at any time and express in so many ways. Also, when we go somewhere that we find beautiful, as aesthetically pleasing, or hear something beautiful, offer that to the Buddhas. Offer it with the wish, may all beings live somewhere pleasing and peaceful. Similarly, we offer water bowls in front of our shrine. This doesn't cost anything. We can offer those as well as those that we mentally generate. And in this way too, we can be of benefit to others. So here we see that generosity isn't limited by whether we have an abundance or not. It is as open and as expansive as our mind is. Through using our intelligence and cultivating our wish to give, we can practice generosity in a wide variety of ways at all times.
Bendigo samdado ngiti kutulia tangyu sidi kalal hamach maine shanla tangyu chichi sosugi da jigdwa punja da phamada dene chiche na de kal robo chigyu sibida je sosugi da jibenyam ne chigyu soso kalase chiza niji lulo shanda tangyu sebe samdodi chiza dine jene ko ya ne ya do geina ti le thya je de du shede nga zo tongye semba de ya nuba chercher da di ko hap che gores.
So this is how we see we habituate ourselves to a virtuous mind. We train in meditation and we keep it manifest throughout our day. So this is the illustration of generosity. It applies to all the others. That through keeping what we've meditated on manifest throughout our day, we will keep generating it strengthening our habituation to it so that it becomes truly part of us, not something that we need to cultivate, but who we are.
Lu longjo kari na shan le ba tangi sambe samlo de jangko res ta nga ju ke sem dini gi na ne nga ju nyamlen che de lu longjo ke za da just kari na shan le ba tangi koncho le chu phi shen dunga se de gi du ya le ba tangi sambe samlo de ane jangko re di ja ba na nga ju ke se na stamji de ba chu nu ba chung ju re se de ja da nga ju sem na le je ji che gi 냠수 랭고에데 디레 먼저 매와 소와데 디레 세데 디링기 다다 가지고 냥고 잡로게 돼 쉬야데 도나 디레 시레.
And to summarize this verse very briefly is that the practice of generosity is the wish to give of ourselves everything that we have, to recognize that it can be utilized with our intelligence to create the causes for lasting happiness. As the text says, we should practice generosity unceasingly and impartially. So here we generate the attitude to give all that we have of ourselves as well as possessions, give to all others in all ways at all times. And this is an attitude which is focused on easing the suffering of others, of bringing happiness to others. It's an attitude free of bias. It's an attitude that is giving continuously. And this serves to counteract our current selfish attitude, our miserly attitude of placing our own needs first and foremost, but rather valuing the fulfillment of the needs of others first and foremost. So our time is up, so we'll then finish there for today and continue tomorrow. Thank you very much.